phone and handle whatever I need.
I like to have a conversation with my kids too and just say, hey, you know how dad's the only dad that shows up on a Tuesday at 11 for lunch? I've got a pretty special job where I can do things like that. And next week's field day, I can be there all day. But sometimes that means I have to answer a phone call on vacation. I try to do that after everybody's done with whatever it is that we're doing. But I try to say, hey, sometimes I can't. Last year we went to Disney World. I had 4 deals fall apart. So I had to answer the phone while we were in line at some of the rides because I was spending a ton of money and losing a ton of money at the same
Yeah.
time.
Not good.
But I
Yeah.
try to have that conversation with my family because they understand. But then I try to remind them and just say, hey, I'm going to try my absolute best. But there's trade offs with my job. I get to be there for you at this time, but that means I may have to take a call on vacation. I
Yeah.
try not to, but it seems to be that one that I always have to take.
I think as long as you're just prepared for whatever it is, like you tell your kids, that's a great idea. I don't have to deal with that, but I don't have young kids. So, I mean, I think, you just preparation is what you need, whatever that looks like. Just like any job, quite honestly, you just have to prepare in advance and be prepared to kind of really hit it hard when you get back.
When I first started in the business, I was probably like a year in, maybe a year and a half in, and the Keenies were taking this amazing trip up to Alaska, and I think they were on a ship for a little while, and then they were on the land, and they did a bunch of traveling, and they were going to be disconnected, and so they put their trust in me to handle their business for them while they were gone. That was crazy, but they did, and so I actually. I had all their files and connections to all their clients should they need anything. And the Keenies were actually able to step away from business and just enjoy that 2 week break. And I think that is the hardest thing for any of us. Could you imagine not answering a real estate related question or writing an offer or showing a client or doing something real estate related for 2 weeks? Oh my gosh. It'd be hard to do. It'd be very hard to do. And as we get to, I think we're getting ready to finish up our 13th year. Um, I haven't done that. I haven't really set my phone down a lot. And I give kudos to like James. He does a good job. Like when we were in Vegas, I'd had Alex showing houses, but Alex was with us out in Vegas at family reunion. So I called on James and he was able to connect with the client and set up the showings and which houses and study the properties and read the disclosures and deliver that value to the client while I was gone. And then if the offer needed to be written, I had Stephanie out there. So she was able to write the offer, which if we were on a true vacation, which family reunion isn't really a vacation, that's work, we were able to still get that done. So if we needed to do something different, I've called on Chris Bradley. Chris, you've written up many offers for us, I believe, when we were in a pinch
Yeah,
when my dad was
yeah,
sick and things like
absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
So that gets me to thinking, like if we're going to step out of town for a little while, we really want to disconnect or need to be off for 2, 3, 4 days, whatever it may be, getting a showing assistant, connecting them with an introduction to your client to have them call because you're going to be out of town, but they're going to be in good hands while you're gone. Again, they don't care about you. They care about the level of service that you provide. And if you can replace that service with a great showing assistant, or another team member that could write an offer for you. If you had to take a quick phone call like Jake is right now, and help them put together an offer for 10 or 15 minutes, but then call Chris back and be like, hey, Chris, can you write this up for me? Thanks. Back to family time. You could abbreviate that a lot. And so I say that because those are some, Nanette, that's a great question. That's some of the things we're trying to work through to how do we have great quality time with our family, not have to step away, but still give great quality service to our clients. And we've got some awesome agents in this office that have really come through and are still willing to step into things when we're away. And so again, lean on these guys. Call on Alex. He's great. James did an amazing job. And of course, I would say kudos to Chris as well. She's very thorough with writing up offers. And then we compensate really well too, so that we can have that family time. I want to make sure if I call Chris back again, she'll be raising her hand to help us out, because the compensation's so good.
Thanks for that. So, I wanted to know how many of you went and cleaned your car after Brandy showed the shame video at team meeting on Tuesday. If you weren't there, she's like, if you show up this way, this is the way people think that you do business. So it was this car and it was a mess. And so she was just asking what our cars looked like. So I was just curious if anybody went to the car wash after team meeting on Tuesday.
I thought that was Brandy's car.
That's funny. No, could you imagine? I've heard of that. A listing agent going into an appointment and the owner of the house walking out and looking in their car real quick just to see what it looked like before they hired them. Not that that's
What?
a
Wow.
yeah. Or I've never had that happen. I think if you provide a great value proposition inside of a fantastic meeting, I don't think they're going out to your car, but it's an interesting perspective. But you know, how do you keep your house? How do you expect them to keep theirs? So
Darren says that he goes to the car wash almost every day.
Oh, wow.
Well,
I
if
think
you,
what
if you
he
got a
been-
pass, I do the same. I mean, I pretty much do, not every day, but about the same thing, just because I bought that monthly pass and I'm like, I'm gonna get my money out of it, or if I'm not gonna buy that pass.
I'm gonna get my money out of the car wash, that's for sure.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's important. It's the same reason why we have to have somewhat nice cars. I mean, it's a first impression. If you show up and your car is filthy and unorganized, that's the first impression they're going to think of you.
Yep, I agree.
Doesn't have to be the fanciest car, but if it's well kept, I think one of the fancy or the clean cars in that picture was like I can't remember. It was like a key, like a very basic, like a Honda Civic or something like that. Nothing fancy, but it's very well kept.
Jake, that's kind of like a dated house, but if it's well kept and maybe some things haven't been renovated and they could use it, but they just haven't been done, but they keep it immaculate. It's very clean and it's not overly cluttered, things like that. It's still a great house. It's not going to be priced at the top of the market, but so you don't have to your point, you don't have to drive a brand new car. Absolutely not. Don't drive a brand new car.
Brandy, you missed it. I asked everybody if they went to the car wash after team meeting on Tuesday, after your shame video that you put up there.
My what?
Your
Oh,
shame,
oh,
your shame video.
yes, yes. I hope y'all did. Well, it's funny here. If anybody wants, it's funny you say that. If anybody wants it, I got free car wash right here. Whole bunch of coupons for a free car wash. Make sure your car doesn't look like that. And it comes with free vacuums and free trash cans. We'll get your car cleaned up.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously, if you want one, if you're not already a member of the Go Car Wash, I got a free car wash for you.
Brandy's invested.
Exactly. I care about your car.
Man, as a
So
realtor, it's so nice. I never get a car wash on Saturday morning with that line of 1,000 cars. I go
Yes.
on Tuesday at 10 o'clock or something like that.
Yep.
That's the best part.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that, going to Sam's Club, like not on the weekends.
Absolutely. You go to the car wash at 8 o'clock on Monday morning, nobody there. Awesome. So I had a listing in Peculiar, 220th Setter's Point, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Very nice, updated, 325. I thought it was going to go like that weekend. I thought we would have an offer by Monday morning. This was a few weeks ago, a couple weeks before Mother's Day. And we had a few showings and no offers. The feedback wasn't negative at all. It just, wasn't the right house, or they decided to go with a ranch, or, whatever. But I was truly in shock that it did not go, because I've been out there in the trenches, and everything that I seem to be showing and my clients putting offers on were in multiple offers. So I just thought that was what was going to happen. So it's just checking with you all to see if your listings were sitting or taking longer to get under contract than what you expected. Moving forward, I had to start using my tools, and I had an open house, and I I do paid Facebook ads, not necessarily to get buyer leads, but it has always generated appointments for my listings. And I had like just a few over that first weekend and maybe one or two during that week. And then the next week, I said I wanted to do a Facebook ad. So I did one, and then it takes a few days for it to get generated and for people to scroll and find it. But then after that, that next week, because we were gonna lower the price after Mother's Day weekend, the week before that, I was getting showings every day. I probably had 6 showings that week, and we went under contract. I got offered more than the asking price. But anyway, it lasted longer than I thought, and I just was checking to see what everybody else's thoughts were.
So how many days was it on the market before you
Before
went
we
under
went under
contract?
contract, probably 14, 15.
I would
Maybe a
say,
little bit
Nanette,
longer, I don't know exactly, but it was
Okay.
just before Mother's Day that we went under contract. We were getting ready to lower the price.
I think things are taking maybe just a little longer than I expect. But again, I would caution everybody, set very modest expectations and you're going to exceed them every single time. If I have a 300s listing, I have no issues whatsoever with it taking 2, 3, 4 weeks, 30 days, whatever to sell, because we have an opportunity to get some prospects off of it. If it sells first weekend, I usually am not going to have an opportunity to get any. It's just my 2 cents on that. But again, if everybody will set the expectations, the average for the market, you can always find that data. I assume it's in the 40s, 45 days, 42 days, whatever it is. Lean on that and say, but it wouldn't surprise me that your house is really, really nice. It wouldn't surprise me if you sold faster than that. That sort of conversation can go a long way.
Yeah, Lonnie, I agree. We're seeing that in our business. We tell our clients there's really 2 markets right now. There's a 30 to 60 hour market and a 30 to 60 day market. And really, depending on the quality matching the price, and really just coming down to that. But we lean heavy, to your point, Lonnie, we lean very heavy on the days on market for whatever that zip code is. If it's a Kansas City listing or, Cass County listing or Pleasant listing, but it seems to work well when we get 2-3 weeks on the market and we're not under contract yet. It allows us to go back and say, hey, remember when we talked about this? And they usually receive that pretty well.
I think Lonnie had in the chat said wanted to talk about irregular properties. So I thought that'd be a good segue after we're talking about houses sitting for a while.
Yeah, we've got, I know I talked to one of our agents or we messaged, I'm sure we'll have a conversation around it today. Camille and Colton have this property that was formerly a church. And a church converted into a residence, a single family house. And it's got a ton of space and, it looks like pretty good finishes. It's, I believe, in Archie or Adrian Archie, I believe.
Yeah.
With properties like that, we just got to know that 90% of the people out there probably don't want a house that looks a little bit like a church. So, nothing against the church, but it's just not the look that a lot of people are going to prefer. So, when we talk about irregular properties, there's a buyer for everything. But in those situations, not only it can be very difficult to price. You almost have to find an entry level and then find tiers until you find your buyer, but you have to be very, very patient. I mean, it could take dozens and dozens of people looking at it online to create a showing for a unique property. And this property is really cool. I was looking at the pictures last night, but it's still, I would say the bulk of our buyers would probably say, yeah, that is kind of cool, just not what we want. Has anybody seen her property by any chance? She should be on here. She could be telling us about it. It's 285, I think, and about 2,800 square feet. So, big house for sure.
I
But where
haven't,
do you price that? Where do you get the comps? So obviously the answer is there are none. You're just kind of using other properties that are not church-like and just extrapolating the square footage and data off that. But her question to the group was, my people want to lower it 5,000 every, periodically. And I think, you have to tier it in some fashion. I'm not sure 5,000 makes much of a splash, but nonetheless, probably in more like $10,000 increments until you hit a little sweet spot, or you get to a point where, hey, we're just going to wait at this level until we engage a buyer, and the rest of our negotiations will be from there. But I think two important things. We have to just have a very direct discussion, and knowing Camille, she's super sharp. She has of, hey, this is a needle in a haystack property that'll need a needle in a haystack buyer. So all the average days on market, anything that's going on, you can just throw all that out the window. And I know somebody on here has a bar in Deepwater, and we've had a vet clinic recently. We've had some unique stuff out there, and we just are going to have to get ourselves plenty of time. But anyway, I just wanted to open that up to discussion for you guys.
One thing that I've ran into twice now on irregular properties, and I'm dealing with one right now, is actually the insurance policies on them. The insurance, I have one that it's 4 times what we thought that it was going to be. And we've gotten quotes from, literally everyone. And it's 4 times what our loan officer, when they put together the buyer's estimated, expenses, they put in there, a tax rate, which is why they want to know where's the property, what's the address, so that they can nail down that tax estimation for the escrow account. And same with insurance. And what's happening is, I've got this one, and our quotes are 4 times what we had estimated and what we thought, and what the seller put in MLS. Well, the seller's getting it. They're paying about $1,800 a year for it. And we're getting quotes between anywhere from $4,000 to almost $6,000.
Wow.
And even their existing insurance company, which is one that you guys would all be super familiar with, is like, if they canceled that policy right now, or if they repurchased it, we wouldn't be able to insure it for what it is right now, because so many parameters, in the insurance industry has changed. And so that's another thing. Like the church, I'm not really sure. I haven't seen that one. But sometimes just the construction type and methodology makes the insurance really, really grossly different versus traditional construction methods. So that's another dynamic to watch out for as well, is what's the insurance and insurability even going to be like, especially with, Royal has mentioned that, roofing. Well, does it even have a typical pitch shingled roof, or is it a flat roof? Is it roll roofing? Is it membrane? Is it spray foam? All of those things matter on those irregular properties. And I'm running into a real jam up with one right now.
yeah, I had some buyers, 3-4 years ago that were looking out at a church on Prairie Lane, and I took them out there, didn't know what I was doing. So I worked really closely with the listing agent, but come to find out, he didn't really know much either. But he was the same one who said, man, be careful of the insurance. Make sure you're doing all your homework, because of all the things that Tim just said. They decided not to pursue it. And also getting a loan for it was different too. We had to go through, Todd had told us to go, we were using Todd. And then when they found out it was a church, we ended up having to go to a Country Club Bank and looking at a different loan type and all kinds of stuff. So all those factors do come into play. It's not as easy as you think necessarily. So.
Anybody else have irregular properties that they would like to share and discuss with everyone else on how you're overcoming?
I've got one coming on in West Belton. It's an A-frame, so it's a little bit different style for the neighborhood. And so the conversation, as Lonnie mentioned, like hey, this could take a special buyer for this type of house. Obviously price point's going to be right in the range that's agreeable. But it may take us a while to find that right buyer for that property, so it may not pop right away. So that was the thing, and it's on a crawl space, and it's a cool looking property, and I think it's a great home, but not everybody wants to live in an A-frame. There's some nuances with A-frames, like stairs that are very vertical getting to the second floor. So
Earth contacts, have some element of that. They're unique. We see plenty of them, so we kind of know how to handle them. They need to be comped with other Earth contacts, but they have a cult following. People either really like them or they absolutely wouldn't consider them. So that has some element of that. But Camille's was just so unique, and that literally from the outside, give or take, a cross missing, it looks like a church. But on the inside, it was really cool and big parking lot, plenty of parking, that sort of thing. So anyway, I just that conversation yesterday made me think of this group, and what do we do when we run into those situations? And but I think if nothing else, we have to let the client know, hey, you love this thing, and it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and therefore we're going to have to churn through an amazing number of eyeballs, a number of buyers to even get showings. And and then hopefully somebody that looks at it who is curious enough will see the quality and go, this, we would have never thought we would like this, but it works for all these reasons.
Lonnie, one of the scripts that I use when I'm in a property like that, or any property, I tell people, and you can point at the door, whatever, but we're looking for 10 people to come through that door. Now, the idea is to get them through here as fast as possible, but in a property like this, it's a little bit different, a little bit unique. So it may take longer to get that amount of buyers through there, but we'll be getting feedback from those 10 buyers, hopefully, and we'll ask for it. And when we get that feedback, we'll be able to compile that data and see where we are and see if we need to make an adjustment at that point. So you kind of put the number 10 in their mind, like, okay, we're looking for 10 people to come through. And usually if we can get 10 people through a door and we're priced right and the conditions agreeable, we should produce an offer. And if it's a unique property, maybe it takes 60 days to get 10 people through the door. I don't know. And it might not take 10. It only takes one, obviously. But if you put the number 10 in their mind, you can get the expectation around what it's going to look like. And so they're not faunching at the bit every time there's a showing and you haven't had one for 4 or 5 days. They're like, okay, this is part of the process.
The term we talked about in team meeting was obviously external obsolescence, which we all have to deal with from time to time. We have a great house, but it's got something externally that limits the market to it, and that can be traffic, noise, a messy neighbor we discussed, that sort of thing. There's the other term that I wanted to discuss, which is called functional obsolescence, and that's where not necessarily anything internally, but something internally about the house makes it obsolete to some extent. And that can be minor from a standpoint of, they're in a subdivision where everybody has a basement and they're the only house that doesn't have a basement. Maybe everybody has 2-car garages and they have no garage, or 1-car garage. That's kind of a functional obsolescence type thing. We had a really nice acreage, well over 500,000, and the people, for whatever reason, decided to move the refrigerator out of the kitchen and into this dining area. And it was really kind of odd. They loved it and nobody else did. So, we were on the market for 4 months. We probably had 40, 50 showings till we finally found the person that actually was okay with it. Again, they were priced right. We had a gazillion people look at it, but I would just cringe when I would see the feedback, because I knew exactly what it was going to say. Well, we're trying to get our mind around how we would live in the house. That's kind of a unique feature. They also made the decision to take the laundry from the main floor down to the basement to create more space, and some different decisions like that. So, there's a lot of these things to consider besides just square footage, location and price. And it can really affect how the process is. It may not affect the price. It may just affect the time it takes to get the price. But, you guys will come across more and more of that the longer and longer you do this.
So when you do have a property that's difficult to sell and it is sitting on the market even longer than what your expectations were, Lonnie and Ryan, do you ever pivot to other strategies such as doing an open house, or do you have any other tools that you like gravitate towards when you're not getting the traction that you wanted in the amount of time that you wanted?
We're usually going to be battling those situations more with time. You know, we need to as much time on the shelf as possible to let the exposure, you know, be out there. I don't think an open house is going to suddenly change anybody's, you know, opinion of whatever we're up against. So that's probably the last thing I'm going to do. But you know, and tier the price. You know, if you give people a range and you start at the top, you know, you got to work through that range, and they're going to have to be patient. And if it looks like their patience is waning, then we probably got to fight with price as much as anything, because we can't change the obsolescence piece. All the different examples I gave you, for example.
Yeah, I like to check their motivation. If I'm getting pressure from my seller all of a sudden, hey, where are we at on this? Why are we not going to contract? You know, price fixes everything. 85% of selling a property comes down to price every time. And so we'll take a look at that. And if something has changed in their world where, hey, we need to move this a little faster, then dive in on some of those questions and see if something has happened there to where you need to make the adjustment. If not, I just like to ask myself, like, hey, like, hang in there. Again, take them back to that initial conversation of what it's going to look like being on the market. And I know you've seen a lot of properties that come on the market and they sell over the weekend, and they may be cookie cutter, or they may be more of a traditional style of build. You guys have a very special property. It's going to take the special buyer. So let's look at that. But if they're ready, like if they're like, hey, we need to move this thing, or like if the motivation goes up, then like Lonnie said, like, let's adjust the price then at that point. But I don't ever get my sellers excited about making a price adjustment, especially on a property that's very unique. If it's a large acreage property, I mean, we're 30 days looking at you know, anything before we even consider it. If it's a big property, if it's something in a sweet spot between, like, you know, 300 and 400, but it's a special property, then again, we would be looking at least 3 weeks of not the results we would hope to get, like having at least 3 or 4 showings. If we're not getting that, then we'd go back and have that conversation again. But just having the great conversation up front, again, continuing to check their motivation. And oh yeah, this thing, communication. I think we talk about that every week. Let them know what's going on. Even if there's not anything going on, let them know nothing's going on. Or, hey, 3 other properties in your neighborhood went on the market. 1 of them sold this week and 2 of them are still available, yours being the 3rd. And at least they would feel like, hey, you're working for them. So if their property isn't going to contract, they know you're still watching the market like a hawk, like we should be, and letting them know what's going on. And that buys you time.
So you guys, that was just a segue into like refreshing your listing if it's not doing. So you and Lonnie are saying that your basic idea of that is looking at the price and reducing the price on the property. Anybody looking at contingency offers, or do you have buyers that are contingent upon, you know, selling their home? Or one time Lonnie and I had a buyer that was contingent upon selling his Corvette, and we actually got an offer accepted with contingent upon him selling his Corvette, because that was his down payment and his closing costs. So anybody having troubles with contingency buyers, or are you finding that they're being accepted on your listings? Are you open to contingencies, or what's going on there?
Well, we're under contract with the Morning View house with a contingency, but it's contingent to close. It's already under contract and everything. So I don't mind taking a contingency if it's already under contract. I don't like taking a contingency if it's not even on the market or that kind of thing. And so like we've gotten offers like that, and I just tell them, after of course talking with the seller, we don't have any other offers. So once you get under contract, hit us up again and we'll consider that. But my seller doesn't want to tie it up because people just stop looking at contingencies, you know what I mean? So, and then when they get it under contract, then they send an offer. So then it's easier to move forward.
I've always liked the line that, when agents call me and go, would you consider a contingency? It's like, hey, it's not an automatic, all contingencies are not created equal. It's not an automatic no or yes. So give me more details. Tell me more about that, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, they have a house in Florida. It's not quite on the market yet, blah, 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 blah. It's 900,000, that's probably a hard pass. It also depends on the property I have. If I have that unique property, like what we were just talking about, we're more apt to take a little bit of risk than we would on something that's a bit more conforming. So a lot of different moving parts, but what Joanna said is so true. A contingent on, a contingency where it's already under contract, what we've always referred to as a firm contingency, is a completely different animal than a soft contingency. And we have to be very, very clear. By the way, most agents, when they call me, they just go, would you consider a contingency? They don't tell me anything about, is this a soft contingency, a firm contingency? They just say contingency. So I have to pry out the information. I would also caution this, even if it's contingent upon a closing, we have to stay abreast of how that front end deal is going. So for example, if you accept one and it has yet to inspect, it has yet to appraise, that agent needs to keep you posted as you clear those hurdles. Otherwise, you'll just be sitting there in the dark, assuming everything is going well. And sometimes agents, when there is a bump in the road, they're a little hesitant to reach out and let you know that there's a problem.
Hey, Lonnie, do you make a front end call on that first domino buyer that's buying your buyer's house? Just checking with the lender and see where they're at with underwriting and strength of buyer. Do you ever do that?
Yeah, we very often, most often, we'll at least call the lender and find out what's going on, because we're going to have a copy of the front end contract. We're going to have a copy, and we need a copy of the front end contract to be sure there's not an additional contingency. It's not 2 layers deep or 3 layers deep. But yeah, we're just like we would with our buyer. We're going to call on that buyer and just explain, hey, we're on the back end of this deal. You're doing a loan for the Johnsons. It looks like the pre-approval letter was pretty cut and dried, but I noticed it was subject to employment, assets, credit, underwriting, and all that. Have any of these things have they taken place? And then they're going to go, oh yeah, we've already run them through underwriting and all this kind of stuff. And, we just make notes right there on the approval letter.
One of the things that we take in consideration too, if we were looking at a buyer making a contingent offer to us, are my sellers buying a property now, or have they already purchased their new property and that's secure to them? If that is, then we've got a little bit to play with here. Obviously, if we have a special property that we're selling, we absolutely would look at a contingency. But again, there's 7 different levels of the contingency of where you're at. And if it's a great property and it's priced right, and we look at all that, and one of the things we talk about too, who are you working with on this thing? Who's the agent on the other end of the deal here? Are they somebody that's known for blowing up deals last minute, or trying to create a problem at the closing table to get something they want? We probably wouldn't even look at that. But if it's somebody, if Joe calls me, heck yeah, Joe, let's do the deal. Let's look at the terms and make sure everything lines up. But I know what Joe's going to do, and he's going to make it right. He's going to work his tail off to make it happen for his clients. And so I have a lot of trust and faith in that as well. So looking at the agent is really important for us too.
Different subject. So Paul Fife and Josh Fife have done a couple of classes on AI. Just checking in to see if anybody's using any of AI. Have you been experimenting with it? Have you had any success with it? What's going on with AI in our world?
I can speak to that a little bit. We are, I'd like to hear from anybody else that is actively using it right now, but that is something that we'll be teaching on. I believe we may even have a class next Thursday. I got to confirm that. But wanted to I went to a Tom Ferry event last Thursday that was almost entirely focused on AI and the different ways that it could be used in real estate. And it's fascinating. And I don't think it's not so much on the ins and outs of the contract basis and everything else, short of the consumer having access to a whole lot more knowledge. And you'll probably see an uptick of people trying to do for sale by owners, I'm guessing. But just the tools that we all will have in our place for marketing and getting an edge on the market is hugely sizable. And things from I know we all saw the video where we got Lonnie to make the video without it actually being Lonnie that did it. Similar things are happening where we can plug in our sources. We can have paragraphs of information from different sources, and we can literally just say, tell this AI platform to create a podcast and drop reference me citing a lot of these sources and all of this, and it will actually just create a podcast and let us be speaking in this podcast, and we never had to show up. Just little things like that. I have a whole bunch of notes for different tools that I can reference as well. So if you want any specific, I've got a notebook here, but just that was some of the takeaways that I had, and I have a whole lot more that we'll hopefully be teaching on shortly.
So Trisha put on here that she wants to learn how to create and use Facebook advertising beyond My Friends and Marketplace. She put that in the chat. Anybody else have anything on AI? Any great stories? I'm very fascinated with it, but I haven't taken the time to like play with it and see what I come up with, but it does fascinate me.
Nanette, I'm like you. I'm a little bit reluctant to jump into it because it seems like the easy button, or maybe like circumventing the work. But you could also look at it as leverage as well, you know. And so there's different ways, but how we use it, I think it does matter. I think I was asking our team if we used AI, and they said yes. I believe writing descriptions on property. Who loves writing descriptions on properties they're listing, right? You plug all the information in on the property, let it write it up, and then see what you think, make your adjustments, and then post it. So that's kind of a neat feature to be able to utilize instead of writing the same thing over and over again. So I think that's a good thing. I'm not sure on the podcast whether or not I would want to have a podcast that I wasn't really at, but I look like I am. So I don't know if that is that real, Joe? I don't even know if that.
It's absolutely real. It's called Notebook LM.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm about to drop a whole bunch of different things in the chat that will just different platforms you can look up. Yeah. But yeah, Notebook LM will certainly do it. And we tested it in this class, and you wouldn't know any different, Ryan. You know, all these things you're teaching, you could just type everything in and it would just sound like you're having a conversation with some professionals, and it was pretty epic. Not that you want to necessarily do that. There's probably somebody will find a tool to utilize that in a good way. It's just showing you that I think that it's like, if we don't get in front of it, we're going to be behind it. And like the descriptions that we're talking about, we all use that, or not all of us use it. If we're not using it, we're already behind the curve, because now just using them as for descriptions is behind the curve. Let alone the things like captions and everything else like we've used with, like Lonnie did. So it is on our front burner. And so I just think that we should lead the curve on it and be in front of it, and have fun with it. I think if you can have fun with it while being an agent and let it really outline what your professionalism can be, I think it will be an amazing tool.
As long as it's authentic. I think that's the part I'm having trouble connecting with the authenticity of it, because it doesn't feel real to me yet. So that's the mindset I'm working around, where like I don't want to game the system or cheat the system of what work I really do and don't do, especially if it's a video of me. Did I do that or did I not do that? Well, I plugged in the information and then I just put it out there, and that created a scenario that looked like I could speak without fumbling through my words, which everybody knows I'm going to fumble and stumble through some things, and that's just part of being human. Yeah. So I don't know. Again, trying to find using it for good, right? And so again, I got some mindset to work on that, Joe. I think it's it's a great and it's a cool tool, and we do need to be exploring it and figuring out how we can best use it. Just trying to, I've got some own internal work to do on that still.
I think it's a lot like we've had in the past. It's like it's not a tool to replace us. It's a tool to help us make us do better what we're already doing good. And so it will really sharpen things up. Like the video situation, like it's like there's simple things in there where it's like we could be looking and reading from a cue card, but you can see your eyes going like this, right? And it's as simple as, oh, it just moved your eyes and it doesn't make you look like you're reading something. And so even little changes like that, that's the small stuff that it's doing now. But yeah, it's there. So
That struggle is real, not moving your eyes or memorizing your whole script so that you can deliver a message without having to look at it. That's very difficult to do if you do video. So yeah.
or being able to do, 5 videos in the time that it takes to do one, and then be able to set them so they automatically set and go out. And that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
Joe, I'm kind of on the fence about it, and I have been since it came out. I mean, I feel being a journalism major, I feel there's a lot of a human essence that, I think can't come out of AI, but it's getting a lot. I mean, when I saw that video of Lonnie, I'm like, that's not Lonnie, is it? And I'm like, he looks weird doing that, but that's not Lonnie. But I just, kind of like you're saying though, I'm not sure I would use it to the fullest extent that you can. Because I think in some ways it is circumventing what we're here for. Hopefully not, but I'm curious to learn more just because you're like you said, if we're not using it, we're going to be left behind.
So there's programs like I think it's HeyGen and Revy that I put on there as well. They have basically scrubbed real estate conversations from professionals left and right, and it's a huge resource just to be able to talk and dialogue with, or to be able to sit down and have your listing appointment with, and it will critique you in real time, or it will edit things, and it'll have a conversation back to you saying, well, and it'll have really good
Yeah.
questions that will be problems to solve, and it helps you work through some of that stuff. So there's just different tools. It's so limitless on where it can go.
Yeah. I mean, I think about things like colleges and, when we used to have to write those white papers, and now kids are, doing all that. And I'm like, what are they learning though?
Yeah.
But I'm old too, so it's
For every good, there's a bad. And so yeah,
Yeah.
you can use it for the bad stuff too, but
Yeah.
we can't always stop some of that stuff. But
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
it did. One of the things that stood out when I was at this conference was that it was saying the dumbest AI we have is the one we're using right now.
Wow. Oh, I'm sure.
It's always just going to keep getting smarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe, I think I agree with Chris, and I mean, there's some sentiment there. I was, as you were talking, I was thinking about my daughter was telling me they had finals like last week or two in college, and stuff, moving back home and all that stuff. So, but she was sharing about how she had some people that came to her in one of her class anatomy. It's kind of tough. So, learning all those different bones and all that stuff. But anyway, they had chat GPT and AI'd their way all the way through the semester. And so when it came to final, they were reaching out. And so I guess that's where I was thinking about that when you were talking, but I agree with Joe. I think there's some great tools out there that can be utilized in our businesses. But to Chris and Ryan's point, I think it's just like any other tool. I think if people were to abuse it or imply it differently than it should be implied in your business, I think you could be held to task, and then you have to call into question the licensing process by which the state allows us to do business, right? So fiduciary, as we all know, is or earnest is in good faith, right? And fiduciary duties matter. So if somebody bent or utilized AI in an improper way, I mean, ultimately it's going to catch up to them. Kind of like those students that AI'd their way through semester, and then final came and they're like, oh, I don't know this stuff because I can't use, my electronic tools. So, I think it's cool. I think there's some definitely learning there. I'd be interested to hear about what you learned and the links. I'm going to look at that, Joe. So I appreciate your share. But Yeah, to Chris's point, I mean, I think people are gonna really potentially put their businesses in a position where they probably ought to know what they're doing and where to. I mean, to the podcast example, you're taking a lot of risk, man. If you put something out there that is artificial, but it's representing your business. If somebody were to see that in the for what it is, it could really come back to bite your business.
Or it might launch it in a different direction.
What?
Or use it, or utilize it in and I think you're right. Use that tool for the right reasons, and I think it'd be a huge plus. So,
Well, just like you said, Joe, I haven't ever thought about using AI as someone to critique a conversation. I was like, oh, there's an avenue. I just think because I don't know enough about it. I'm like, people are just using it to cheat the system and write papers and write your descriptions of the property. To me, nobody knows your description of your property that you're listing better than you do. So I'm like, why take that extra step? But then now I'm like, oh yeah, we all know there are better ways to say things and better ways to, using your proper grammar and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I've never thought about using it for that, like that Hey Jen or whatever you were just talking about.
Yeah, Revy.
Oh, I had no idea that did that.
Well, Jake used it for, he had a house and it was on the market for a while. It was vacant. And then he went into AI and put furniture in it. He staged it with AI and it didn't cost him very much money. And he used his own photos and placed them in the room where he wanted it. And then the photos were, he says $20 in the chat, and it helped his house. So you can also use it for that. There's so many uses of AI that in our business. And so I'm interested when exactly Joe's class is, because I think that we all should.
Well, it's something Paul and I are working together to try to work out on how. I mean, we can't teach all of these in one class, and so now we're trying to figure out okay, which one are we leaning into one at a time, kind of thing, and then kind of running from there. But a lot of the things for people that that have a lot of pushback toward AI is like recommendations would be. A lot of the statistics I was hearing is spend 10 hours in AI, which 10 hours seems a lot, but if you're here and there, just let it add up and then go like 5 questions deep. Just keep asking it more questions regarding the same thing. So if you ask it a question and say, oh, well, okay, well, then pretend that I'm a top selling agent that's doing this, that's having a struggle with whatever, or whatever the situation is, and then keep going deeper and say, okay, we'll respond as if you were a millennial instead of a boomer or something to that effect. Like it will react to those situations. And so that's the kind of thing is you got to use it as a tool, not just as a search bar. That was another thing. Like the search bar is being replaced with an ask bar. As you've noticed, if you Google something now, the very top response generally is an AI response that's coming back as if you asked it a question itself. And so I asked a question earlier. Does Heartland MLS syndicate to LoopNet? That was just something that I asked. And it said, yes, it is common for Heartland multi-listing service listing to be syndicated to LoopNet. LoopNet is a major platform, blah, blah, blah. It goes on to all of this situation, but you can keep asking it, okay, well, what's the best way to get more exposure on this without having to spend $600 a month, and you can keep going deeper with it. It's like having a conversation instead of just having a one-way response.
That's good.
And see, I didn't even know that, Joe. I mean, I've noticed that on my phone, like if I'm reading something on my phone and I keep getting all these AI things on my phone and I'm like, what do these things do? So I was pressing them the other day and it was giving me all this background on I think I was reading some sports story or a golf story. And it had all these suggested AI questions. And I'm like, what are these things? I mean, but again, I'm old. So I pressed on them and they were bringing answers up. Like if you would ask about this or that, then this would be your answer. And I was like, what the hell? This is crazy.
Yeah,
It's crazy, scary, crazy, are we all gonna end up being robots? Who knows? I have no idea, but I think you're right. I think people like me, we just need a basic understanding and then, not be afraid of it. Just like when we learned dot loop, or anything else new in this industry, kind of got to take it in small bites and see how it turns out.
Yeah. I know like Grok is another search engine. You've probably heard, I think Gemini is the one owned by Google. Grok is the one that's owned basically by Elon Musk. But the advantage of that platform is that they have access to all of the Twitter feeds now. So you're getting live data from things people are tweeting. And so now it's the only one that's owned by a social platform. And so we'll be able to get real time stuff. So you could be sitting down at a diner downtown and saying, hey, what are people saying about this area of town in this location? And what are the top things to do? And like, that's just the small stuff. And then whatever tools you can build that into
Yeah.
will be real time. So
It's really unreal. It seems like it's unlimited and it's unreal.
I haven't heard Twitter in a while. I didn't even know they had Twitter anymore.
well, it's X now, but
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay. I don't know. I don't hear about X either. So I
It's
didn't even
still
know.
out there. My husband's on that
people-
thing every day. It's his source of information.
Yeah. And that was the number before it got bought out. It was the number one source that people went to for a news.
I mean, I'm like you, Nanette. I don't use it, but my husband is on that, scrolling that Twitter feed all day long for all things sports, all kinds of stuff.
I need to check X out because
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Well, check
This
out
is all
Grok.
good. This is all good
GROK.
for us to keep fresh. And
Yeah.
I think I'm 63. I believe in my lifetime we've gone through the most changes in the fastest amount of time than any generation before us. I mean, we've gone from a phone connected to a wall to a phone that you can talk to somebody in the jungle from anywhere in the jungle. So I just think it's just going to keep coming at us faster and faster and faster, and we have to keep up with it if we want to sell real estate at a high level.
Yeah.
So lastly, we are 2 weeks away from month six. That's halfway through the year. Can you believe it? It's gone by very quickly. Checking on our goals. We all made goals at the beginning of 2025. And how's everybody doing on their goal setting and making their goals and hitting their goals? And is there anything we can do to help you hit them at the time that you're to be hitting them?
Nanette, I'll just speak to our situation. We've had some distractions the last few weeks, and I kind of got a little fed up with it and decided, hey, if I'm going to be doing this, let's do it. So I went back to this thing called Do the Two. I shared it with Brandy and pulled that little puppy out, and it's on my desk and has been since Monday. And I'm seeing that no matter what, those activities get done. And that's 2 phone calls, 2 texts, and 2 just positive things to do for someone every day. And I'm sure it's just a coincidence, but in the last handful of days, my pipeline of buyer and seller leads has also increased. And I can't say that's completely attributable because I'm really just kind of back to focusing on my daily activities. But there's no question that will eventually show up there. No question about it. So we talk about AI, we talk about all these shiny objects. At the end of the day, the blocking and tackling, the belly to belly part of the business, that's how we generate the business. The other things will help serve the business, but we've got to get in relationship with people at a high level to hit our goals and make things happen.
Yeah, well said, Lonnie. We're beating the bushes on that in ours because we're behind on our goals. It's been a much more complicated spring than we thought it'd be in our business.
Yeah, Lonnie promised a whole bunch of tailwind this year, and I have not seen that yet. So it's
Todd
probably
Brantz.
Lonnie's fault.
Call
We set our
Todd
goals
Brantz
too
then.
high.
Chad Green put in the chat that, yeah, we went from outdoor plumbing to indoor plumbing in our lifetime. So, which I'm thankful for every day. Sorry. My phone's connected to my computer, and when it goes off, everything goes off. Anybody else? We're at 11:01. So great talk today, great meeting.
good.
Thanks to everybody that showed up. If you're showing up for this, you're showing up for your clients. So
Great job,
great
Nanette.
job, everybody.
Thanks, Nanette.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
Jake, for all the
Thanks, Nanette.
tips.
See you guys.
Bye.